Good morning, everyone, and welcome to D.I.V.E, Diversity, Including Various Ethnicities. I am Iris Owens, your host, and on the line with me is my beautiful co-host. Good morning, Jessica. How are you?
Good morning. Happy Monday. I'm in
Happy
my sunshine
Monday.
colors. I'm in my sunshine.
Yes, you are in your sunshine color. And so, guys, we have a wonderful, wonderful guest with us today, Mr. Rondald James Owens. And he is what we would consider Gen Y, or otherwise known as a millennial. And so, in keeping with diversity, we really want to focus today on age diversity and how we operate in age diversity and what does it mean basically to be Gen Y or be a millennial? Because in real estate and in our lives, we are dealing with a lot of times millennials, and sometimes we don't quite understand what that really means. So, first of all, millennials were born between 1981 and 1994 and 1996 is how they phrase that. As of 2021, it was stated that there are 72.1 million millennials in the US.
Wow.
Okay. All right.
I
So
mean, baby boomers were booming.
Yeah,
absolutely.
they were
Absolutely.
booming.
Right.
Exponentially.
Right. So some characteristics of Gen Y, just to give you some background, is so Gen Ys they're the first generation that grew up with the internet, with cell phones and digital communication, right? So that's a big deal. I think it also put a lot of weight on them because it made them, it threw them into this world of technology before they could even really speak or walk, right? So even now we see babies in carriages watching things on their parents' phone, or they have their own phone or their own, iPad. So I just think that's really amazing, right? And so some characteristics of Gen Y or millennials are that they're very tech savvy, right? They value flexibility. They seek work-life balance. They are result oriented. They seek reward and praise. They are innovators. They enjoy collaboration. And lastly, they are ambitious. So, Rondald, with all that being said, where do you land on that? And basically, where do you see the world? Like, what color are your glasses when you're looking at the world as a Gen Y or a millennial?
I'll definitely say I agree. I feel like if you were to make that a generalization of like Gen Y, like I feel like that fits really well. Definitely a lot of people I talk to are always looking for, like, passive income has kind of become the buzzword in our, like, I feel like in business in general, but in our generation for sure, we're like, how do I put the most amount of effort up front and then get the most amount of return afterwards without putting the same amount of effort in? And I remember like when you had to go outside, you know what I mean? You couldn't even be inside. And then I remember that like slowly changing to like dial up and like, oh, you can chill inside and play video games, or like, do you want to hop on the call? And like, I remember like when technology like became integrated into our society to the point where like we just started, it was normal to have a GPS in the car and to be on your Game Boy with like the light flashing, but none of that stuff existed prior to, right? So I think the way that I look at the world at now, kind of like realizing all that stuff, especially because a lot of it dropped right around 94. A lot of the stuff, like, I mean, like even hip hop, like the stuff that I listen to, like in music wise, which is also technology, if you really think about like that whole culture and lifestyle, not even just the music, all of that became like solidified in the 80s and moved forward. So I think my idea now is that I'm always kind of like the world is actually just a really big playground. Like there's it's not that like it's not that the foundation for whatever you want to create isn't there. It's just that someone isn't doing it. And then they also need like the early adopters. In a lot of cases, the early adopters for a lot of the technology was our generation, but the people who created it was the generations before us. So when you think about it, like it's always like this pocket of like you have people who are like, our elders before us, right? And they've created all this stuff, and a lot of them use it, but then people around them don't use it. So they're like, well, I might as well just give it to like my younger kids, my grandsons, my nieces, my nephews, my brody's cousin down the street, because I don't have any of my own kids. You know what I mean? Like, and then we end up growing up with it, and then like it kind of just becomes this thing where it becomes like a symbiotic relationship where we go back to our grandparents and our elders, something they already know about. Like, oh yeah, I remember when that was, you know, a rotary phone, not a wireless phone. Or I remember when that was like, we had computers, but only in the military complex. And now we have laptops and desktops. So like, or when phones were only a military thing, you know what I mean? And now they're like, everybody has one. And then through that, I feel like we learn how they see the technology and like what the original purpose for it was, and then we see what we use it for. And then by doing that, I feel like we create a framework for all of us to exist in it better. Where like we end up teaching them about technology, they teach us about things that we could have, you know, we weren't necessarily conceptualizing with it. I feel like the idea is always like the stereotype is that Gen Y is either innovative or they're not innovative, and we're either innovative because like we're standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Or we're either not innovative because we've had everything given to us and we're just really like repurposing and but it's like, isn't that what we've always kind of done with everything, sort of thing? You know what I mean? Like, even if you want to talk about like people being moved here or people moving here, however you want to like classify that, and then like the recreation of our languages and our slang and like how we interact with each other, like all of that has been like a push from the generations before. And then I feel like to end that, to like cap that point, being 81 to like 96, if we're calling it that, like we grew up with all the stuff in the 80s, like most of the stuff that became commercialized and sensationalized on television and like wide broadcast, because it was already like television and broadcasting, radio stories on the radio, all that stuff was happening. But in the 70s to the 80s, a lot of that stuff became available worldwide to a lot of people who hadn't seen stuff in different countries or didn't know about radio shows. So for us, we literally grew up with like all of this content that was like kind of like free floating, that we were taught by like our parents and our moms, the songs that we grew up listening to, or the R&B, or like you know, going to gospel and coming back and watching movies, or like Dynamite, like all of that stuff, right? We were indoctrinated with all that stuff, and then we were given a platform, the internet, to be like, hey, do you know about this thing that I know about, and how do we? And since then, it's a giant community. It's basically a giant community that's always been a giant community. The internet was just like it was like it was the online version of being able to go and ask somebody for sugar. You know what I mean? To being able to like go down the street and talk to somebody rather than like, so like a lot of the stuff that we like, I feel like we lost, what people said we lost, like a lot of the interactions of being able to go to your neighbor's house or ringing the doorbell or just checking up on people, we kind of recreated on the internet. So for me, it's like, it's not a move away from humanity so much as it is like a callback to it. And I feel like it's like, it's a way for us to get back to being in person with each other, but it's also just a way for us to like expand our ideas to like for things like passive income, because everybody isn't on the internet for money. Some people are on the internet just for funny cat videos. Some people are on the internet because the so-and-so over here makes this content that makes them feel good and it keeps them alive. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's literally like a marketplace, and it's a marketplace, but it's also a lifestyle for anything that you want to put into it, which also ends up for a lot of people becoming a marketplace. I don't know if that was like all over the place, but that's like kind of how
you answered the question.
Right, you answered the question actually completely. And I don't know of any of the viewers that may be watching, but I was not aware that Gen Y millennials was 1981 to 1996. I was not aware of that. Therefore, I am a millennial.
Oh, there you go.
Therefore, you are a millennial.
Welcome.
I'm telling my age, but I'm a millennial, and everything that you listed, Iris, I completely agree with. And here's the thing. From my perspective, we're either all in or not at all. There's really no in between, in my opinion, with the millennials. I feel like we got the best of everything. That just that little caption of time, 81 to 96. I feel like we got the best of everything. We got the best fashion, the best music, because the 80s was just the best decade, in my opinion. I mean, because it was just like a melting pot of so many different ideas and cultures and views, period. And I remember, again, I'm telling my age, Rondald. I remember when the internet was first brought into my elementary school. I
Oh.
remember when we had to take home the papers because our parents had to sign because the
Mhm.
school was getting the internet and we had to have permission to be able to get on this big computer where the monitor was like this wide. And I mean, at the time, not knowing that we were really in the beginning of a major transition for the world,
Absolutely.
not even really
Absolutely.
understanding what we were really embarking on at the time. But what I think of when I think of millennials, and Rondald, you tell me if you feel the same way. Millennials take to heart that work smart, not hard aspect of life.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
They take to heart, like we literally, that is our mantra. Like we're going to work smart, not hard, and we're going to work hard and play harder. Like that work-life balance is a must.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, where we saw our parents literally just work, retire, and unfortunately pass away.
Yes.
That's what we saw. That was the norm. So I think
Yes.
because we saw that so much, we made the commitment that won't be us. We're going to work so that we can enjoy life. Like we don't work to live. I mean, we don't live to work. We work to live, like to literally provide the lifestyle that we really want for ourselves and our family. And I really think that generation has really changed the whole dynamic of what work-life balance is.
I'd agree with that.
I totally agree with you both. So I represent Gen X. 1965. I'm at the top of the Gen X, 1965. And so I am behind the baby boomers, right? Okay. And so reared by baby boomers, by a baby boomer. And so life was definitely different in terms of how we were given the path to how to live. The whole idea of, as Rondald, you stated earlier, about how one of the stigmas about either we're too flexible, or we're not flexible enough, or and really the way that goes is really Gen Y millennials are lazy. They want everything given to them right here, right now. For as a Gen X, I never, I would tell you all, when I was in corporate America, I remember a job that I had, and I started the job. I loved the job. And of course, everyone who was there at the job had been there, of course, longer than I had. And I remember one of my coworkers saying to me, yeah, so after you're here, 20 years. And I remember saying 20 years? Because I can't imagine staying anywhere in any one thing for 20 years. And that was my attitude. It was always my attitude. I always knew that I had an entrepreneurial spirit, but it was not reared that way. I was reared that you're going to go to school, you're going to work hard, you're going to get a college degree if that's what you want to do. I had the option if that's what you want to do. And then you get married. Everything was a boom, 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 boom. That's how life was, right? And nothing wrong with that, because we need that kind of foundation in order to excel in life and evolve. I think, though, at times, every generation gets stuck in the evolving portion. Yeah. Where because the differences are so far that we knock heads with one another, and we do not learn to appreciate, or sometimes we buck the diversity or the flexibility, the free flow of a millennial, right? Because we're saying, I don't understand. Why won't you go to college? You have to go to college. You must go to college. How are you going to survive without going to college? But we're seeing that there are many Gen Y millennials who are like,
Doing
college
very
and
well.
younger, and kids that
and
aren't even
younger
in our
who are
generation.
saying
Yeah.
that's not even on my that's not even on my bill. That's not on my bucket list at all. Why?
Not on my radar at all.
Because I have so many other avenues to the pathway of being quote unquote successful in life or being grown up, however you want to put it. So I think that's interesting. So Rondald, you want to share? Could you tell us your pathway? Like, how old are you? Where are you right now? What are you doing? And tell us how you got there.
I just turned 28 on the 12th, so 28. Leo Nation, you know what I mean? Oh man, I love astrology signs so much. Atlanta is one of the best places to talk about astrology signs. You just be finding out. Oh, my moon sign is a Scorpio. I didn't even know that. Tell me what that means. Like, but born in New Jersey. Like, my parents are like, my mom's from the Bronx, my dad's from Buffalo. So if you can already conceptualize that, right? New York, like literally if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, right? Like already that mindset.
Okay.
Most of my family is from there and then from South Carolina. So once again, the idea of being out in the country, if I can make it, like so you already know like hard work is like an ingrained thing. It's not even like a question, it's just what you do. We moved down here in 98, like around that time, I think. Then I've been in Georgia. I've been in Decatur, Stone Mountain. I've been in a bunch of places. So after I got out of high school, which we ended up moving around a little bit. We ended up in Peachtree City, Georgia, which is a really great place over there in Fayette County, Fayetteville. Some people call it the bubble, but around that time, around 2014, I was like, I really want to make music. Growing up in the choir, my mom has always been an artist. My dad has always been that guy who like he could be an artist, but he's like, it's not for me. But they both listen to tons of music. My grandmother also was like raised me in Brooklyn for a year, and then moved down here with us like when I was first born. Has probably put me on to so many different I was talking about culture. Like she put me on a Bonanza and
I remember.
geez, man, like all of TV Land, bro, like literally all of that stuff. Because when you think about it, right, like going back into music, a lot of the stuff that people sample from nowadays is those popular shows. They sample from those because why they're culturally relevant, because why they literally have a pull on people before the internet existed. And not only do they reach the millennials and the people past the millennials, they reach everybody. And then when you put it into music or something else popular, then it just it becomes accessible to everybody again. But with all that, like I was thinking, like I kept noticing, like talking about money, right? All right, well, musicians are everywhere. Music is in the airport. Music is in the bathroom with you sometimes. Music is in like the bar. Music is you driving down the street. Music out the window. Music in the venues. And I'm like, how do I make passive income online? Because like I would rather do that than to like keep working, right? Just like keep working and just seeing a paycheck. Before 2014, I had gotten on YouTube. This is like YouTube kind of after the Wild West phase when they're first starting their partnership program, like around that time, or maybe like after it's gone through a few iterations. I'd have to like really check. We're probably like 13 to 16, I think is when I like 14 to 16, 13 to 16. Me and a few friends got on YouTube. We actually got monetized. This is back like years ago when like where there aren't tons of people on YouTube. Okay. And we were so excited, like flipping out. Like I'm telling you, like we're like, oh, we about to be up there. We about to, and then they changed their policy, which is basically like these are the requirements you now need to be a part of the partnership program. So rather than like grand personing us in, they just cut us out. So we like literally, you know what I mean? We see it like, oh, it's possible. And then like in the same moment, like a week later, right? Yes. A week later, like it's like, and we done. And I'm like, no. So that gets me started on the music. So then, I'm like, all right, well, what do musicians do? They play shows, they go to the studio, so, from 2014, and this is like, I'll backtrack because there was other things I was doing. But from 2014 to 2000 to now, basically, I tried to make music, or not tried, I attempted to make music the main source of income that would then become passive, and then I could use that to focus and reinvest on other things, right?
Right.
Turns out, like my first 2 years, we get to like 2016. Turns out one of the people that we've been working with was like, yeah, I'm making all these instrumentals and like these are all mine, and we have been recording them and putting them out. We hadn't copywritten any of them, thankfully, but found out that they had just been getting the beats off of YouTube. and then just telling us that they had produced them. So all of that content, if I want to set up in the music business, right? Like if y'all have known anything about the whole Khalees Beyonce situation, which is like
yes.
a whole, like,
Yes.
that's like a whole can of worms by itself, right? But basically, if
you
I were to
potentially been sued and you didn't have anything to be sued for.
didn't even know that it wasn't mine. You know what I mean? Thinking like, so that puts me into this whole spiral where I'm like, well, how do I become self-sufficient in the music business where I can make my own stuff and then still own it, right? Like labels are cool, being signed is cool, but I'm not necessarily looking to get signed. I want this to be something that I have, right? So, you know, in the meantime of doing that, I'm dancing for the Braves, right? I'm doing dancing 2018, 2019 is my dance for the Braves. From 2014 to 2022, this same time period, I'm trying to figure out music. I'm doing extra roles. My cousin Dimitri is somebody who does film out there in North Carolina and then also like around, you know, just in the US. He comes down here when I'm living in Fairburn. He tells me that there are things called extra roles. This is when people start moving down here for movies, when Atlanta's becoming the mecca of film. And he shows me, he gets me on Tupac, All Eyes on Me. He was on there several times, like actually on the thing. Since then, I was on Black Lightning. I've been on, like actually on Black Lightning, have a speaking role and everything, like in several other shows. But none of that ever paid me any residual income yet because I don't have an agent. And when you go and sign up for most of that stuff, if you read the actual contract, at the bottom of it, it says, once this contract is signed, you sign over all rights to like this, like, you know, basically anything else. When you go and like sign up for Instagram, like we can reuse your content. We're just giving you this platform. Like,
so you get no additional income for using likeness.
Right. So by 2022, or no, by 2020, I've done, I don't even know, hundreds of sets, right? I've been dancing for companies, huge companies, the Braves. I've been doing poetry all over the place. I made probably like a few hundred off of that, like open mics all over the city. I'm rapping with this nonprofit, and we're doing camps and going out here and doing this and events. All of this is money, right? Profit, but none of it is passive. The moment it goes through my account, it's out. You feel me? So I think around 2019, I started really getting to the idea of like ownership and ownership of intellectual property. So once again, as I said, for me, just based off my upbringing, that's been music for me. My friend Chris, he starts making instrumentals. So I don't know how to produce yet. I can produce now, but I just start hitting up producers, and I'm like, yo, can you make me an instrumental? I'll put you back on the split sheet. I'll pay you for it, and I'll put you on the copyright. So every time this song gets streamed, you get paid, I get paid. I literally just want a contract that says, I own the rights to this instrumental. You're not gonna sell it to anybody else. And then the original instrumental, in cases like where it's like someone already made it, and I'm just like, I'll buy that from you. And the version that has me on it, I want the rights to. But the version that was originally what you produced, I want no rights of. So I started setting up deals like this, contracts like this. And at first it takes me a while because, and it's funny, people are getting in trouble for it now. Like Billboard artists are getting, it's basically this service called Splice, where like they create loops and sounds for you, drum loops, guitar loops, whatever, right? But everybody has access to it. So you got people who are on Billboard making the same drum loops as the people who are sitting here like in their like your room and stuff, right? Which is fine up until the song starts charting, and then they're trying to figure out if this is your song or their song because they're going off of the loops. And it's funny because this is what I realized, right? Like that moment where I realized we didn't own any of those instrumentals sent me into this spiral where like I had to go on my own, because a lot of this information isn't just freely sitting out there. On the websites it is, but on YouTube, when you try to go ask somebody, yo, how do I copyright my song? Or what is the masters, which is literally just the sound recording and the performing arts copyright that you get at the Library of Congress, that's what forms the master that people talk about. But to just go into a YouTube video, nowadays it's much easier. After the pandemic, people started making a lot of YouTube channels. We saw a lot more information being put up. A lot of people who are in the music industry were like, I don't feel like anyone would care if I said this, they started basically just telling what they knew. So you were able to go on and look for that. But back when I was trying to find it, it was a runaround, or hey, download my book or sign up for my content. And then when you sign up for the content or download the book, it ain't any different than what you got in the video.
Hold on one second, Rondald. You know what I find interesting is that you're talking about your journey. And what I have learned from millennials is that what you all don't know, you go seek it.
I'll find it.
You go find it. And if it doesn't exist, you make it.
Yeah.
Right. It's the tenacity.
It's the tenacity. It's the innovation. It's the
Passion.
hunger for, I'm going to do it different because I know there's a different way.
Yeah.
And I think as generational gaps,
Mhm.
those gaps can be filled in if we take the time out to really understand one generation from another, just like diversity. You have to have some knowledge about another individual, whether it be based on age, gender, sexual orientation, background. You have to take the time out to educate yourself so that when someone comes to you with something, before you go, what is that even?
Wait, what?
What? That's what you do every day? Oh my God.
About being open-minded.
Being open-minded and understanding that there is, as my grandma used to say, there is more than one way to skin a cat.
I mean, we have the same grandmama, because I heard that too.
Yeah, that's a colloquialism. Colloquialism, yeah.
Right, but it's so true. It reigns true every day. And
Every
now,
day.
you know, my parents were actually baby boomers.
Yes.
So they came from the generation of baby boomers. So of course, they skipped Gen X, and now they have a millennial. So you can only imagine the disconnect.
Yeah.
Like, what are y'all trying to do? Like, I'm trying to make this happen using this little piece of money over here, but I want to become this.
Right.
No, you need to go to school.
Right.
You need to get a degree.
Yes.
You need to go back to school, get another degree.
Yes.
Then you need to find your husband.
Yes.
It's like they already had this
plan.
Step-by-step guide
of
how to live your life.
Yes.
And I blew up the whole plan.
Blew up the spot.
You blew up the whole plan.
The whole plan.
I'm sure they were looking at you many days like, what?
I mean, my father, you know, first of all, being a baby boomer from the South, from country living, he went off to the military and then went to college, got his bachelor's degree, went back to college, got a master's degree, went into the education field. So these were big things.
Yes.
For that time period.
Absolutely.
Being from where he was from.
Absolutely.
Right. So of course it was big expectations for their children. Like, okay, we made it from nothing. You all were a little more privileged.
You had a springboard.
We expect them a whole lot more, you know, from you all. And I mean, even my brother, based on these years, he's a millennial as well.
So they have two millennials.
Yes, two millennials. Like, I'm the oldest, but you know, so we both blew up the spot. Like, we both just, you know, we really went at the beat of our own drum.
Yes.
You know, so I understand that, and I even look at those who are behind me, and they are fearless. Let's just put it like this. You know, as a millennial, we did things still with caution. You know, slight caution, like, I'm gonna try this, but I'm gonna still have this in this back corner just in case this doesn't work.
Right.
This new age, I don't even know what they're called. I don't even know what their title is, but they just jump. They don't think about the consequences. They don't think about the repercussions. They just go for it, because in their mind, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work.
Well, you know what? I also think so. Next generation, Gen Z, right? Gen Z. Think about Gen Z coming into the world. Most Gen Zers came into the world, 9/11 had happened. That had never happened in the United States before, right? Then we started with school shootings and you know, there was just so much. I always tell my Gen Z, I have a Gen Z,
Okay.
that you're strong. You know why you're strong?
Yeah.
Because everything you have experienced in life, I have no reference for.
Nothing.
Yet you are still standing. I think we need to learn to appreciate the strength of those who come after us. And a lot of times when we're older, we tend to think, I know better than you. There are some things I do know better than you.
Right. Based off experience. But
based off experience. But I also don't have your experience. So I don't know. So I think we have to learn to appreciate the experience of those who come after us because they have so much to offer.
Right.
When you look at the world through the lens of a Gen Y, a Gen Z, you know, you learn, you have to open your mind, because if you're not opening your mind to learn and to evolve, you're going to get left behind. And so to have appreciation for future, for those who come after you and those who are going to be coming after you, just remember, we can all learn from one another, and we can learn how to get along with one another and appreciate one another if we would just take down the shield sometime of, how dare you tell me that this is that, because you know what? I've been here longer than you. And I know I've just, you know, I know I've said that to my kids. I've told my kids many a times, you can't put anything over on me. You know why? Because I have been every age that you have been. You have not been every age that I have been.
And I say the same thing, Iris, to my kids, but I'm going to reference a science theory, and my father will be so proud. He was a science teacher, y'all.
Okay.
Hey, let's go.
Law of evolution, because each generation takes on the strengths of the generation before and they add to it.
Absolutely.
So I feel like this generation now, Gen Z, they have all of the positive qualities from all of the generations prior to them.
Yes,
that's why they are so fearless.
Yes.
That's why they and I really feel like the other generations look at them as being careless. I don't look at them as being careless. I really look at them as being fearless, because they are not allowing fear to stop them from making the necessary steps to accomplish the goals that they have set for themselves.
Yes.
Whereas the baby boomers, yeah, they thought about it, but they didn't see how that could really happen. So they didn't even try.
No.
Right. Then you have, you know, your generation where you started making more moves and you started seeing where things were really happening and developing. And then here comes Y. We're like, let's get it. Oh no, we have to go to school. Let's make this money. We can do this. We can do that. And now Gen Z is going to have the most entrepreneurs ever.
Ever. That is one of the characteristics of a Gen Zer. Entrepreneur.
That generation is going to be full of entrepreneurs. Now, Gen Y has a lot of entrepreneurs because, like I said, we have that life work balance. We have perfected life work balance.
Yes, you have.
Gen Z is coming in. I don't want to work because I want to already had it set or do whatever I need to do to have it set. I'm making money in my sleep.
Yep.
Yes.
They have, and I have three children in this range. My oldest being, about to be 16 in less than 3 weeks. And he does music like you, Rondald. So everything you were saying, I'm sitting over here like, yes, I'm seeing that. The YouTube and the Roblox and all of the different platforms where he can upload his music, and he's gone from, I'm just a drummer to now I'm producing and I'm making tracks and I'm doing it. And I'm looking at him and I'm like,
all the things that we had to wait to become adults to.
Right. Like, what are you doing? How do you even know how to do these things?
Yes.
So it's like, it's so mind-blowing, the wealth of information that's on the internet. It's mind-blowing how the internet has allowed kids and as well as adults to connect with people we would have never met, known, other cultures. you know, and find the similarities and be able to collaborate.
Yes.
So those type of things, you know, it kind of scares me, but at the same time, I'm intrigued because I'm like, we looked at the world as just being our area, our neighborhood, what we saw every day. Whereas
Right.
my kids are even more well-versed than me with, they've been to multiple countries. They communicate with people that they have met that's now across the world. Or you know, we never had those type of things. You know, I'm thinking back to, if you remember, we had chat groups.
Yes.
Yeah. Message boards.
Yes. Chat groups.
Chat groups. You didn't know who you was talking to.
Nope.
You had no ability of FaceTime or video call.
No.
You was talking to just any old person, you know. But now these kids are talking to people in a whole nother country, a whole other time zone.
You know what I find funny? So I grew up in New York, but of course I spent every summer of my life in Charleston, South Carolina, where my mom and my dad is from. So I laugh now and thinking in my head that I remember when I would go to Charleston and when my grandparents first got a phone, that you would pick up the phone and you only had to dial the last 4 numbers of whatever the phone number was. But here's the thing.
Wow.
Everybody else was on the same line. So you'd be talking. You ever heard of a party line? That was a real thing.
Everybody was on the phone.
Everybody was on the same phone at the same time. So you would have to say, is so-and-so on here? It was the craziest thing. It was the craziest thing. It was like a party line. And then eventually it moved to everyone getting their own line. So imagine, so a real cap of diversity. Parents are from the South. Parents migrate to the North. I'm raised in the North, but every summer I go to the South. I go from my running water in my 20th floor apartment, my own room. I have a phone. I have all these things. I have a TV, my own TV in my own room. I think I know I had a color TV. I remember my first TV was a black and white TV. Transition that to, and air conditioning. Transition that to going to the South every summer. There is no air conditioner to be found nowhere in your life, baby. If you're hot, you better sit on the porch and fan, as my grandfather would say. My grandfather said, I remember asking my grandfather, can we get air conditioning? My grandfather used the words, he said, you will not burn up my damn tricity, not electricity, his tricity. And he meant that thing from the bottom of his heart.
And he did.
I went outside. I was outside every day from sunup to sundown, to the point that I would get a fever because my little body was not used to that. But the diversity of my life every summer, that is how we have to look at it. My grandparents didn't have indoor plumbing. I remember going to the well, pumping water to wash dishes, to bathe in. These are the things that we all value, we all grow from. I think that's why I love my life, because I have had the benefit of seeing life from so many different aspects. And I think that is what we have to do. You always have to remember, this is my life, but your life is your life. And I have to learn to appreciate, we all have to learn to appreciate one another's life. Rondald, I tell you all the time, I appreciate all that you have taught, all that you have shown, all that you have exhibited, because there are times that I'm like, in my mind, I probably say, what would Rondald do?
God, chill.
What would Rondald do?
That's a great compliment, Rondald.
Yeah.
Because he has a different perspective about life. Like you said, we were reared to work. You work, you retire, and then unfortunately you die. Not to be crass, but I just want you all to remember, there is nowhere in the Bible that says people ever retired. It says that we were born, we worked, and we died. That's how I live my life. I want to work. I want to work hard. I want to play hard, play harder, and enjoy the life that I go out every day to create.
Enjoy the fruits of your labor. Like that is to me the dream.
Yes.
I have a question I want to pose to both of you. Do you feel, because I feel like just like you, I was raised in Charleston, South Carolina. So I saw, you know, all of that. I had AC in my house.
Yes.
I was privileged.
Yes.
But I would go to my grandmama's house and be stuck to the couch. I'm wet up in sweat. Okay. You know, so I remember when my grandmother's house finally got AC, you know, I remember the whole progress and all of that. I was sent to Jersey for the summers.
Oh, so we have the opposite.
Right. So I was able to get a little bit of the northern life.
Yes. Exposure.
I didn't like it. I'm gonna go ahead and put that out there.
You sound like most of my family. They never liked it.
I was like, why is it so loud?
It's acquired. It's acquired for sure.
I don't like nothing shuts down up here. Like
people don't go to sleep.
But because of that, I feel like it made me more well-rounded because of all of the experiences that I've had. Now, my question is, do you feel that even though the generations after us are more advanced in the area of technology and things of that nature, they're missing those little nuggets, you know, of, because they'll never experience having to pump water.
Right.
They'll never experience not having AC or not having cable. Because I didn't have cable for a very, very, very long time. I literally may have had 4 channels. And then I remember my uncle, of all people, he got this big old satellite dish. Now, you remember the satellites that used to be as big as your house?
Yes. Yes.
So the kids, I feel like the new generation, they'll never understand that. My daughter is 13 and everything out of her mouth is, you're old. You're old. Did y'all have cell phones when you were a child? And I'm looking at her like, girl, I could choke you.
Right.
My mother and my father had a cell phone. It may have been as big as my work bag. And I remember every time my mother used the phone, she literally wrote what time she used it, what time she got off, because she said she had to keep up with those minutes. I don't know if you remember that, Iris.
I do. Look, I didn't have a cell phone because you could barely say hello. It was a hello, what? Don't get off. That's it.
Because it was expensive. So do you think that those, you know, just those experiences, does that change? You know, should they experience that? I just want to know, is that going to hinder them because they don't have that?
Rondald, why don't you answer that? Have you had this experience that she's talking about?
Yeah.
How do you think it's helped you?
Yeah, for me, I think like I don't know if I count as like an outlier on that, but also, I wanted to jump back to your point about the theory you had said about evolution. There's actually, like, I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of neuroplasticity. It's pretty new. It's like only like the last, I think, I have to go back and actually look, but it's probably only about 15 years new, because before, like, they used to tell you, you know, when you get a certain age, your brain deteriorates and your motor skills fail, and like they found out that none of that stuff is true. Go figure. But it's actually like, if you learn even one new thing, if you spend 15 seconds here, or really even depending on who you're listening to, the moment that you see something, your brain makes 10,000 new connections. So like, you actually, even that one thing can keep somebody 90 young forever in the terms of like brain and body. It's not about, it's just if you learn it, you find, like, if you're not, you know what I mean? But to your point, cause see, for me, like, I was talking about grandma, right? Like, grandma put me on all the shows, all the music, all the stuff that she experienced, right? She didn't just tell me about, like, she told me about her life in general. So even like, you know, I don't know what it's like to pick cotton in the field. I know what cotton feels like. I know what it feels like to go into a field and pick cotton. I've had those experiences, but not like the way she did. You know what I mean? Like, I've been able, like, growing up in the South, I have pumped water, and like, I've gotten water out of a well, and like, just being around, like, in Georgia, you know, talking about Peachtree City, I've met a whole ton of people, all people who don't look like me, people who like live in different places, and like I've seen people hunt and trap and how they talk about setting. So like I've literally since being 28 have had an experience of what it would have been like to grow up without any technology, to be like, and then of course once again like being my generation, I remember the time when I didn't have any technology, like you know what I mean, like. So for me, I think it's more about like, are you interested? You know what I mean? Like, do you? Because some things are like to go back to the time period when in which my grandmother picked cotton is technically impossible. Like even if I were to go onto a field now and pick cotton, that feeling,
Not
the
the
energy, the right, none of that is the same. But for her to give me her experiences and then for me to get like a glean of it, it's kind of like the same thing I feel like you were talking about with evolution. We get like the positive characteristics or the positive like the imprints of what the experience would have been like, even if we ourselves can't go there and be like, all right, grandma, I can't understand that pain. I can't understand the sun. I can't understand like what she must have been going through, but I can at least conceptualize, you know what I mean? And then like if I go have because I've worked on a farm. I've gotten up at 3 a.m. before and worked till 3. Like I've worked on a farm. So I know what at least that's like, you know what I mean? And then like where I can fill it in, I kind of create my own framework. And then from there, I feel like it gives me an understanding of like where I came from. Like, the things that had to be done
Gives
for
you
me
an
to get over here.
appreciation.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Because
Yes.
like I'm just chilling in this building, you know what I mean? But technically, like if it went the way that it was supposed to, like none of us would be on a Zoom call right now. Like none of us would be in a building on a computer. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like for me, I feel like it's if you care about it. Certain experiences are like unique. You
That's
can't go
it.
back and necessarily get everything.
That's the key
That's
word.
it.
If
Go
you
back.
care about it.
If you care.
Yeah, if you go
That's
back
it.
and you tap back in, it gives you something. Because then, like, you can be like, well, dang, I'm over here thinking about how am I going to get this song out to everybody, and I have all these different platforms. And my grandma was back then like, how am I going to get out of South Carolina and get to North Carolina? And she did that, so I must be able to do this. If she did that at 16, I must be able to do this at like, you feel me, like. So yeah,
Yes.
I feel like it's like if you care about it, then even if you don't have it, you can go back and kind of build an idea, and like the inspiration comes for you in that way. But I don't know. I'm weird like that because literally, like people tell me all the time, like, how do you know this song? Like, I go out to places all the time where nobody knows me. I'll start playing music or whistling Andy Griffith or watching this show or like stuff from the 1920s. Like people like, how do you know this? And I'm like, because I grew up with certain people who are just like, hey, young blood, hey, grandson, and like I listened. Like,
They took you under their wing. So I think
right,
that's the key. That's the key
right,
to this entire episode today.
Yes.
It's really about if you care. One, I think the biggest takeaway, Iris, and you tell
Yes.
me, is first of all, being open-minded. We have to be
Absolutely.
open-minded to the differences of each other. Right?
Absolutely.
The whole point of being diverse. Like we're not
Absolutely.
all the same. We're not cookie cutters.
We're not.
We have to be open-minded to each other's differences and try to see things from other people's perspective.
Yes.
That's one. And then I think two, we each have to hold each other accountable to be able to show the younger generation,
Yes.
or at least explain to them and tell them about the different experiences that we had, like grandmother did us,
Yes.
so that they can have an appreciation for it.
Right.
You know, and you're
and have a
13
foundation to
Right.
understand how are we here?
right.
Because you only got here because of everybody who was before you.
If
right.
that
And
didn't happen, we wouldn't be
Yes.
here. Like it's
and
like
have the appreciation and the
Yes.
respect for those who paved the way prior to.
Yes.
And therefore, your 13-year-old daughter's not looking at you like, "Ugh, you're old."
Yeah, you're old. Yes.
You know, so yeah, I think we have
I'm old
to
too, Jessica.
carry
Don't
the
feel bad.
torch.
I have a
Yeah.
19-year-old, so don't feel bad. I get it too.
oh man.
Yeah.
But
Good.
we have to continue to carry the torch. Even us as Gen Y, Rondald, we have to carry the torch so
Yes.
that we can show and tell somebody what we were told and taught, so that Generation Z understands where we come from. You know, because
Yes.
we have to have an open line of communication so that we are all able to respect and understand each other's perspective.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the whole gist of this episode. Like, it was like my aha moment.
I was gonna say it was amazing. It was amazing. Rondald, we thank you so much for joining us today, because all perspective, and that's what we is basically like, what color are your glasses?
Yeah.
I think this is what diversity is all about. What color are the glasses that you're looking through? How do you see life?
Yeah.
And so we thank you so much for sharing with us, for joining us today, enlightening us and giving us those nuggets of knowledge. And so you two Gen Ys over there, I appreciate you all so much. And we thank you all today for tuning in. Rondald, thank you for joining us. Jessica, thank you as always for being a great host. And we will see you all next week.
See y'all.
Bye.